So today's session we will discuss about data aggregation techniques in Pandas. See, data aggregation and grouping is a very important of data analysis, and in fact it is the last stage of data manipulation techniques. These aggregation basically helps to summarize the data and makes complex data analysis much easier. So basically data aggregation generally means a transformation that will produce a single integer from an array. So we have already seen actually data aggregation in our previous lectures, where we used mean function, sum function, and standard deviation function, where we applied these functions on a set of values and finally we obtained a single value. So that's an example of data aggregation. But a more formal method of data aggregation is includes the categorization of these set of data. So categorization of a set of data is actually carried out for grouping, and this is actually a critical stage in the process of data analysis. So the categorization of the data or the grouping process actually involves three steps: step splitting, applying, and combining. Splitting, where we divide the data into groups of data sets, and applying, where we'll be applying a function on each of these groups. Combining, where finally we'll be combining all the results that are obtained from the step 2, and finally we'll be obtaining a combined result. So Pandas actually provides a very flexible tool, a very flexible high performance tool which we call as GroupBy. So GroupBy is an important Pandas library, a tool, you can say it's also a function that you can say, that provides a lot of libraries to perform very complex operations on these groups. So GroupBy basically involves three strategies. We also call that, we say that group follows a split, apply, combine strategy, where data is divided into groups and a function is applied to each of these group, and the results are combined together into a new data frame. So practically, if you want to understand this GroupBy, just imagine that I want to analyze a data set of sales transaction. Let's say I have various product categories. Let's say I can group some of the items into a category electronics. I can group some of the items into the category toys. I can group some of the items into the category book. So this grouping is actually called as is our first stage. And in the second stage, for each of this category, maybe I will try to analyze the sales. So that would be the second stage. And finally, I will be combining all these results to find out the total sales, right? So this diagram also is just a simple indication of this entire GroupBy process. Let's say I have taken a data frame, or it can be a series. Our input can be in the form of a series, it can be in the form of a data frame. In fact, you can apply even on a NumPy. Right, suppose this is a data frame consisting of key and values. The key is actually containing the colors, and these are the values for each color. So in the first phase we do splitting, right? Suppose I am doing splitting based upon the color concept. So that means what? I am grouping these two, or the first two rows, into one group, the next two rows into second group, and the last two rows into the third group. So basically I've done splitting based upon the color. In the second phase, I'm going to apply, let's say, mean function. So the mean of the first group is calculated, mean of the second group is calculated, mean of the third group is calculated. And then finally I'm going to combine all these and put it together into one single data frame. So this was just a simple example of how the GroupBy process actually works. So the same thing has been shown here. So the Pandas will implement the GroupBy by these three different phases: splitting, applying, and combining. In fact, under applying, you can have various concepts, like you have aggregation, where you do aggregation like calculating sum, mean, count for each group. You can also apply transformation, where for each group you can modify the values based upon the required functionality for that group. And the third one is you can do filtering, like you can keep the groups or you can discard the groups based upon the certain conditions. And finally you combine the results and put it into a new data frame or a series. So let's look into one example before we start coding or doing this on the Python Jupyter Notebook. So let's say I have a data frame something like this, right? I have the columns color, object, price 1 and price 2. Let's say my intention is to find the average price 1 using the group labels. So in the step 1, first I will create the data frame in my Python code. In the step 2, I want to access the price 1, right? So I will call the GroupBy function and I will do the grouping based upon the color. Suppose I'm doing grouping here based upon the color. Then how do I do it is, I write frame of, under that I've created a frame. The frame is nothing but the data frame which I've already constructed. So I'll be categorizing or I'll be doing the grouping based upon the color, and I have to access the price 1 column. So to access the price 1 column, I say frame of price 1 within the square brackets dot, then I will be calling the GroupBy function, and for GroupBy function I am giving the color as the argument, so that grouping is done based upon the color. So how do you group color? Because now color is one of the items in a data frame, right? So you have to say frame of color within the square brackets. So when you do this and you try to visualize what is there in group, you will see that some kind of grouping has happened and you will not see any result. So basically here grouping has happened, but you cannot really see any calculation because no calculation has been done as of now. So now what I do is, suppose I want to do grouping based upon the index number, then what I can do is group.groupS. So when I do that, you can see this is the kind of result where I get, where what I'm seeing here is green and this is the index number, right? The green is in which index number? 2 and 4. Red is in which index number? 1 and 3. White is in which index number? It is showing 0, that means this one. So if you want to do grouping based upon the index number, then you have to say group.groupS. Now coming to the next stage where I want to do the second phase, that is I want to do the calculation. So you just say, because all the grouping has been done and kept in this variable called as group. So under group you call the functions that you want to do. So group.mean, I will do group.sum. Basically when I say mean, it's going to calculate mean for all the 3 different groups, right? I have 3 groups here, one for the white, one for the red and one for the green. So mean will be calculated for each of the groups. Similarly, sum will be calculated for each of the groups. So this was the second phase, right? And third phase where I want to do combine. I want to combine the results of the phase 2 and put it together into one new data frame. So how do you do this? Is just say frame, because I want to create a frame, and the values of my frame that I want to take is price comma price 2 and dot group by. And how I'm going to do, suppose I want to do grouping based upon the mean, just say frame of color dot mean. So you just write the same thing here, but the only difference is I will be adding mean function at the end, and I also want to display the price 2, so that can be given here, right? And you can also do it in, this is for multiple columns, right? The difference here is I have done here for multiple columns, price 1 and price 2. Fine. If you just want to do for one column, just write price 1. If you want to do grouping for price 2 also, just write price 1 comma price 2, right? And this is the second one where I'm doing just based upon the color, and I'll be calculating the mean. So let's see this in the Jupyter Notebook. So first thing is, let's import the pandas, and here I have constructed the, okay, now this is a simple example I've taken here. This is another example where I'm trying to group the data based upon the categories, like electronics, this is the sales, for furniture this is the sales. So let's execute this to understand this better. So let me just display the data frame data. See, I have created a data frame like this, product categories, these are the 4 categories I have, and these are the sales, 200 for this, 300 for this, 400 for this and 500 for this. Now I am grouping this based upon the category called as electronics. So product category. So this is a product category. So what happens here when I execute this, I'm calling the GroupBy function where I am categorizing according to the product category and finding the seams. So what will happen is, final result would be, I will be having the values for electronics. I'm calculating the sum for electronics, right? So electronics, here it is 200, here it is 400. So finally the answer is 600. For furniture, here it is 300, the sales here is 500, so total value is 800. So basically df is basically the data frame, which and group by product category sales you have to say. So when I say this product category, the grouping will be done based upon the product category. In this case it's electronics. Okay, and finally sales, the sum of the sales will be considered using the sum function. Let's take another example which we just saw in the presentation here. Now I have created a data frame which is similar to what I have in this presentation. Right now I want to calculate the average price, and I want to do grouping based upon the color, and I want to find the average price 1. So what do I say is, I have created a data frame called as frame. So under frame I'll be calling price 1 because I'm taking the average price 1 and I'm grouping according to the color. So when I execute this, right, if you visualize group, you're not seeing any calculation. Basically it's just saying that I have constructed a grouping, group by object has been called. So that information I get to know. So as I said, if I want to do grouping based upon an index number in the sense I want to group white together, greens together and red together, so then you have to say group.groupS. And as I said already, this for green you are getting this number. Basically this is the index number or the row number at which green is there, and this is the index number of red, this is the index number of white. Now if I want to calculate the mean of this, so just if you say group.mean also, you can see that, right, for green the mean is coming as 40, red is 30 and white is 10. So basically what has happened is green 30 plus 50 is 80, 80 by 2 is 40. So here color wise mean has been calculated, and here color wise sum has been done. So the grouping here is done based upon the coloring. How did I do it? Because I told here, right, dot group by frame of color. So when I say dot group by function, when I call, you have to specify based upon what you want to do the grouping. So that was a simple example. Now there's another concept called as hierarchical grouping, where I can, if you see the difference between this and this, right, this statement. So basically what I have done here is I am doing grouping. Each group is, I have more than one group. I am extending the group. Right. So how did I extend the group? I just in group by function, instead of just grouping based upon the color, I'm also now grouping based upon the object. Right. The difference between this and this is, now I'm in under group by function I'm giving two parameters. Color was already there, I'm adding object. So when I do that, what difference does it make? Right. So this is the group as function, and when I do the calculation of the sum, you can see that both color and object is displayed, and grouping has been done. I'm also taking object into consideration. In the previous example there was no object here, right? There is no indication of what object was under green. Now you can see under green I have pen and I have pencil, right, and under red I have ashtray and pencil. So here I'm grouping based upon two parameters, right? So finally when I'm calculating the price, you can also say that in the previous case I just did the pricing calculation only for price 1. If you also want to do for price 2, just write that, right? This is our data frame. Under the data frame I also want to see price 2. So what you see here is, so the mean value for price 1 is also displayed, the mean value for price 2 is also displayed. Okay, so this is hierarchical grouping, where the group by function can call more than, can do grouping based on not only just one parameter, more than that. Here grouping has been done based upon color as well as object. So that's why you're able to see even the objects, right? And I'm also finding out the price 1 as well as price 2 in this case. Now there is a concept called as group iteration. Now instead of since I'll be having group of objects, I can just use a for loop in order to do the calculations, right? Under green I have 2 items, under red I have 2 items, under white I have 1 item, right? So it's better that you do iteration in this case. So how do you apply iteration here is for name comma group, right, in frame dot group by color. So I'm doing grouping based upon the color. So when you call this function, right, what you can see here is I am printing both the name as well as the group. So what is the name here? The name is nothing but the color, this one, right? And what is a group? The group is nothing but this one, right? So under green now I have 2 groups. Under red I have again two items in the group. Under white I have one item in the group, right? So this is what we call it as group iteration, where you can iterate through the items inside the group. Okay, so that's what is displayed here. Now there's another concept called as advanced data aggregation. Now advanced data aggregation, you will learn two more concepts called as transformation and application, transform function and apply function. Now which is actually very useful for doing something even more, doing analysis little more complex as compared to the previous one. So if you take this example here, right, I have a data frame which is like this. Now I am grouping based upon the color, right? But the difference here is we want to bring together more things during grouping. I will be having the original, that is the color. I will also do grouping based upon the calculations, right? So advanced data aggregation involves grouping based upon two things. The first thing is the original data which is already there in the data frame. Okay, so I repeat, advanced data aggregation involves bringing together of two things or grouping based on two things. The first thing is the data which is already there in the data frame, in this case the color. The second one is I'll be doing grouping after based upon the phase 2, that is based upon the calculations. So for example, sum, I can do grouping based upon the sum as well. So that's why we say this is a little advanced topic, because here I am using grouping based upon the original data in the data frame as well as based upon the calculations which was done in the second phase. So how do you do it? Just one single line of code, frame.groupBy, where I say I'm grouping based upon color dot, also write the sum function because I'm also using sum function. This is just a prefix, I'm adding a prefix to my price. So when you actually execute this, you can see that green, these are the colors, right? Because I had three colors, so categories, three groups are there just like before. Now the difference is I'm also categorizing based upon the sum, right? So 80, or if you have any other green which is having 80, that will also be under this 80, 60, 10, and this is for the price too. So this I just gave this add prefix tot underscore, that's the reason it is got printed here. Right, now you can also see I can use merging over here, right? I can merge this data frame, right? I have my original data frame and I can merge is basically what I'm merging two things, right? So I'm merging the frame. So this is a frame, right? So this part is nothing but the data frame and this part is after doing the grouping, right? I can merge my original data frame with the calculations which are done after grouping here, right? So pd.merge function has been used here. Frame will give this part, sums, because sums I've already done here, right? That is giving this part. So if you go to the notebook, you can better understand this. See, I'm using the same data frame. I am now doing data aggregation using two things. One is a color and one based upon the sum. So when I execute this and I display what is in sum, sums is something like this, right? For each color I'm getting total price 1 and total price 2. Now I want to display the original data frame with this. So how do you do is this pd.merge, call frame, call sums. I am making left underscore on. We have discussed this in the previous session. And we have also discussed about right underscore index concepts in the previous session. So just go through that. So you can see that this part is because of the original data frame and this part is because of the aggregation and sum calculation. Okay, now there's one more concept as I already said, data aggregation. In the advanced topics you can do filtering, you can do transformation. So I'm just showing transformation over here. To perform the transformation, what is the difference here is, see, I have called here a function called as transform. Okay, I need to import the library before that. Let's say import numpy as np. Sorry, shift enter. So now let's come to this. So this is one more concept where I'm applying transformation. So I am grouping again based upon the color, and I'm also grouping based upon one more parameter called it as np.sum. and I'm having again a prefix here. So here grouping is just not based upon the color, also based upon the sum. So if you see here, this is the final object I am having. This, if you actually see the original data frame, you can understand. This is our original data frame. In our original data frame, under white I have just pen, and under I am just having pen here, and then pencil, ashtray belongs to red, so that's why they're putting into one. Pencil, pen, it belongs to green, so that is what it displayed here. Pencil, ashtray. So you can see that a transformation has applied. I am using the np.sum method, where I am just calculating the sum of all these prices for the different colors, and that has been displayed. You try all these examples in your system, okay, in the Jupyter notebook or in Spider, whichever IDE you have, and the more you work on this, more examples you give, only then you can actually understand these complex methods. So just let me know any doubts or any suggestions or any queries if you have in this session, and also please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.